Welcome back, friends. Are you ready to do some more tree ID? We're learning how to recognize different kinds of trees just by their bark. Let's get into it.
Part 1, we learned that white birch bark is white and papery, while yellow birch is also papery but yellow. Beech bark is smooth and gray, and the young trees keep their leaves into the winter. Oak trees also keep their leaves into the winter. This helps you to know whether it is a red, white, or bur oak. Oak bark has furrows, and the bark of the ash tree has diamond shapes.
In part 2, we're going to look at 7 other kinds of trees that grow here in Muskoka, where we live at the southern edge of the Canadian Shield. The bark of the black cherry tree is rough and scaly. It looks like it flaked right off of the trunk. These thin, tall trees often grow in groups. Look for the black knots on the branches and the trunks. This is another way that you can recognize them. Do you know what a maple leaf looks like? Of course you do. It's on Canada's flag. But when maple trees don't have any leaves, it's much harder to tell a maple tree from other kinds of trees. The bark of a maple is rough with ridges. Sometimes you can fit your fingers underneath these ridges, but don't pull. Never take bark off of a living tree. It could kill it. The 2 most common kinds of maples here are the red maple and the sugar maple. They look alike, but the red maple often has more than one trunk. Sugar maples, like this one, are the trees from which we get maple syrup. Do you like maple syrup? I love maple syrup. In the springtime, this is one of the trees I tap to make my very own maple syrup. Sugar maple seeds are the main food of deer mice. When there are lots of maple seeds, there are lots of deer mice. And when there are lots of deer mice, there are lots of other animals such as owls and foxes which love to eat deer mice. Speckled alder is a shrubby tree. The trunk is small and speckled with white flecks, like this. It has cones which stay on the tree for several years after the seeds inside them have dropped out. Find them around small streams and creeks where they create their own special habitat called an alder swamp. Speckled alder are the most important food for beaver in the winter. Poplar tree bark is smooth and light with some dark spots. There are 3 kinds where we live: balsam poplar, trembling aspen, and large-tooth aspen. The balsam poplar has a large, straight trunk and a narrow crown. Its bark is greenish and smooth when young, but gray and rough when it gets older. Large-tooth aspen has light green or yellow-green bark when young, which gets dark and gray and deeply furrowed when it gets old, like getting wrinkles. Trembling aspen looks like white birch, but it is not as white, and its bark is smooth. It also needs lots of sun, so it grows in more open areas. It is an important wildlife food. Grouse eat the buds in winter, deer and moose eat the young twigs, mice, hare, and porcupine eat its bark, as do beavers. It is their favorite food in the winter. And the leaves are eaten by bears in the springtime.
Let's look at what we learned this time about winter tree ID. Cherry bark is rough and scaly, while maple bark has handles. And red maples can have many trunks. Speckled alder has a small trunk with white speckles on the bark. Poplar bark is smooth and light. Balsam poplar is green when young and gray as it gets older. Large-tooth aspen also gets gray and wrinkly when older. And trembling aspen is the whitest with rough spots.
Now you know how to identify some common leaf or deciduous trees in the winter by their bark. Practice this in your backyard or whenever you are out on a walk or a hike. If you missed part 1 or want to review it again, take a look at it on our channel. We also have a video about a barred owl visit to our own backyard. Check it out!